Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, Mike Lindell sent me a note yesterday. He has a special for the 6-piece towel set, $25 when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. You'll get the $25 offer on the 6-piece towel set, and I promise you, these will be the most comfortable, the most absorbent towels that you own. mypillow.com, use promo code Joey, get the 6-piece towel set for just $25. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Things are off to a rocky start for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as the Minnesota National Guard confirmed yesterday that Governor Walz was demoted and did not retire as a command sergeant major like he has claimed for years, including on his official gubernatorial biography. Meanwhile, JD Vance approached Air Force 2 after Kamala Harris and Governor Walz landed in Wisconsin yesterday, telling the press it was going to be my plane soon, and pretending to want to ask Harris why she won't answer questions from the press. It got kind of interesting on the tarmac yesterday. Finally, Senator Vance scored points by challenging Governor Walz, making light of his Ivey League education. Vance said he's proud of overcoming his circumstances of growing up in poverty and still getting a good education. The war of words has begun in the vice presidential race.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Things are getting off to a bit of a rocky start with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as he was thrust into the national limelight this week. The Minnesota National Guard confirmed yesterday that Governor Walz was demoted and did not retire as a command sergeant major like he has claimed for many, many years now. While Walz temporarily held the title of command sergeant major, he retired as a master sergeant in 2005 for benefit purposes because he did not complete additional coursework at the U.S. Army Sergeants Major Academy. Now, this is according to Army Lieutenant Colonel Kristen Augie, the Minnesota National Guard's state public affairs officer, in response to media requests. The statement reignited a controversy that began during his 2018 election for governor. So this is not new information. It's been discussed before, which is even more surprising that the governor hasn't corrected it after it was brought to the public's attention a couple of years ago. The National Guardsman claimed on social media and in a paid ad that Walz declined to deploy to Iraq for combat duty in 2005 and forfeited his title command sergeant major. Walz chose to run for Congress that year. The governor's biography, published on the state's official website, says that, quote, Command Sergeant Major Walz retired from the Minnesota National Guard in 2005. At the time, he was serving as one of the highest-ranking members of the 125th Field Artillery Battalion. The Minnesota National Guard disputed his description of his final rank. In their statement, they wrote, Governor Tim Walz served from April 1981 to May 2005. Governor Walz served in the Minnesota National Guard's 125th Field Artillery after transferring from the Nebraska National Guard. While serving in Minnesota, his military occupational specialties were, and he goes through, he was a cannon crew member, operated cannons, field artillery, senior sergeant, and it names several other things, infantry senior sergeant, administrative specialist. It says he held multiple positions within field artillery, such as firing battery chief, and it describes other things. They told Just the News, though, in a statement, he retired as a master sergeant in 2005 for benefit purposes. The two retired command sergeants major in the Guard wrote in an open letter posted to Facebook during one of his previous campaigns that they felt it was their duty and responsibility to bring forth the truth as we know it concerning his service record. According to the letter, Minnesota Governor Walz was selected in 2004 to serve as the command sergeant major of the 125th Field Artillery Battalion, and by September that year, Walz was conditionally promoted to the rank. But by early 2005, Walz's battalion was ordered to mobilize for an active duty deployment to Iraq. Shortly after, in May 2005, Walz quit, leaving his battalion and its soldiers hanging without its senior non-commissioned officer as the battalion prepared for war, according to the two command sergeants. They went on to say, when your country calls, you're supposed to run into battle, not the other way. He ran away. It's sad, they said. He had the opportunity to serve his country and said, screw you to the United States. That's not who I would pick to run for vice president, he added. Governor Walz's office did not respond to requests by Just the News. Now, there was some excitement yesterday in Wisconsin as the campaigns found themselves at the same airport. Republican vice presidential candidate JD Vance stunned reporters by attempting to confront Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate, Governor Walz, on the tarmac when their planes arrived at about the same time. Here's Senator JD Vance literally walking from his plane across the tarmac to try to find Kamala Harris when you can see the big Air Force Two in the background.
Hannah, what do we know?
Can we walk over there?
Hannah?
Hannah, can we walk over there?
Hang on, everybody, hang on.
I just wanted to check out my future plane, but I also wanted to go say hello to the vice president and ask her why Kamala Harris why does she refuse to answer questions from the media? And I also thought that the press gaggle following her might get a little lonely. I at least have enough respect for you all and for the American people you report to come and talk to you and to answer some questions. And so I thought her reporters might actually benefit from that as well. So had a little bit of fun. I don't think the vice president waved at me as she drove away, but I'm glad to have done it. And I'm glad to be here in Wisconsin actually trying to persuade people to vote for us as opposed to just giving another scripted speech.
Now, the funny part of this is this unannounced visit kind of stole the attention away from the nearby rally featuring Vice President Harris and Mr. Walz. Harris and Walz posed for pictures with Girl Scouts troops on the tarmac shortly before Vance overshadowed their first joint Midwestern campaign stop. The Democrat candidates seemed to have left seconds before the Vance campaign arrived. Harris's campaign attempted to mock Vance by posting video of his plane landing at the Eau Claire airport with a TikTok-style oral caption. All of a sudden, I hear this agitating, grating voice, it says. Now, Trump-Vance campaign spokesperson Stephen Chung, not to be outdone, tweeted back, make sure Air Force Two is deep clean because Lord only knows what Kamala Harris and her team have done on there. The smell alone on that plane must be crazy. Wow. Vance's approach seemed to be a spur-of-the-moment decision. You can see him as Secret Service. They're not quite sure what to do. That's what you heard there. Detail agents saying, well, can we go over there? Can we go over there? But that wasn't the only thing that happened yesterday. In a video that went viral Wednesday, Governor Walz is heard promoting gun control by referring to weapons of war that I carried in war. Now, let's listen to this conversation.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back. And I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment. But we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states. And we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Now, just wait for a minute there. He said weapons of war that I carried into war. Let's listen again.
And we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons.
Now, there's a slight problem with that because, as we mentioned earlier, Governor Walz never went to war. He quit his battalion before that came up. Senator Vance was asked to respond to Governor Walz's comments when he made light of Vance going to an Ivy League school while speaking in Philadelphia.
Sir.
Detroit. Last night, Governor Walz suggested that because of your Ivy League education and your Silicon backing your political career, that you yourself are part of the elite. What are your first impressions of them trying to frame you this way to the American public?
Well, look, I came from a family where nobody in my family had ever gone to law school. I grew up in a poor family. The fact that Tim Walz wants to turn it into a bad thing, that I actually worked myself through college, through law school, and made something myself, to me, that's the American dream. And if Tim Walz wants to insult it, I think that's frankly pretty bizarre. Now, look, what really bothers me about Tim Walz, it's not even the positions that he's taken, though certainly he has been a far left radical. You know what really bothers me about Tim Walz as a Marine who served his country in uniform? When the United States Marine Corps, when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful to prepare your unit to go to Iraq, to make a promise that you're going to follow through, and then to drop out right before you actually have to go. I also think it's dishonest. Something, again, if you guys ever get an opportunity to ask Tim Walz or Kamala Harris some questions, he made this interesting comment that the Kamala Harris campaign put out there, and I bet they're regretting they put it out there now, because he said that and he was making a point about gun control, he said we shouldn't allow weapons that I used in war to be on America's streets. Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? What was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone? What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage. Do not pretend to be something that you're not. And if he wants to criticize me for getting an Ivy League education, I'm proud of the fact that my mamaw supported me, that I was able to make something of myself. I'd be ashamed if I was him and I lied about my military service like he did.
Let the games begin. I was talking to a good friend the other day, and he mentioned that he has started taking the weight loss injection drug that was initially made to treat type 2 diabetes. He said he's losing weight, but the day after he takes the injection, he is so sick he can't leave the house. That got me thinking. Most of us go on a weight loss journey so that we can feel better and get healthy. Folks, losing weight should not make you sick. I can tell you firsthand, 4 years ago when I started PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, I was never hungry or agitated. I never felt sick. In fact, I felt great the very first week. The PhD side effects are better sleep, more energy, smaller clothes, and a general sense of well-being. Getting healthy should not make you sick, and it shouldn't make you dependent on a drug either. Simply put, PhD is freedom. You will not be dependent on a drug because there are no drugs. You'll learn to eat for your body, and you won't gain the weight back. They have a lifetime maintenance program, and PhD teaches you to trust yourself and your knowledge. Call them today, 864-252-4925. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's 864-252-4925. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. So as the campaigns are heating up, who is Governor Tim Walz? Who is Tim Walz? Since being named Vice President Kamala Harris's vice presidential choice, trouble has found him pretty quickly. In addition to the Minnesota National Guard confirming this week that he was actually demoted and did not retire as a command sergeant major like he has claimed for many years, he even has it listed on his gubernatorial biography. Now that he's on the national stage, his past has become an immediate topic of interest. Everybody wants to know who he is, what he's done. And they're not taking his word for it, just reading his biography. A booking photo that was obtained by Fox News shows the new vice presidential candidate pictured shortly after a 1995 arrest in Nebraska after state troopers pulled him over for speeding and suspicion of drunken driving. Now, we knew that this is not a secret. It's not the first time we've known about this. We knew that he had been arrested. It's just when you see the mugshot, it kind of puts it into a different light. The Dawes County Sheriff's Office said that Mr. Walz had been arrested September 23rd, 1995, after state police pulled him over. He was suspected of driving under the influence of alcohol at the time. Court documents allege that Walz, he was 28 at the time. He was a high school teacher, high school football coach. He was speeding above 80 miles per hour. He failed a breath test with a .128 blood alcohol level. Now, the limit back then was .1 in many parts of the country, including Nebraska. It's now .08. So think about that. Based on today's levels, it's .08, and he was at .128. The guy was plastered. He also failed a field sobriety test, but his lawyer blamed the incident on a combination of his client's bad hearing and that the state trooper didn't turn his siren on right away. He said it was a little bit bizarre. Russell Hartford was the attorney who represented him at the time. Walz believed that somebody was after him. Well, somebody was after him, all right. Somebody was chasing him because he was going 80 miles per hour and was driving erratically, like maybe he was drunk. Walz was booked into the county jail. He was later released on bond. The case ended up in a plea deal where he admitted to a reduced charge of reckless driving. He paid a $200 fine and reportedly no longer drinks alcohol as a result of the incident. Now, as you can imagine, the Trump campaign, the Republican National Committee, the GOP super PACs who will be making their own case for and against various candidates, they are all arguing that Walz reinforces Harris's biggest political weakness on issues including crime and immigration. And, of course, there's already the narrative being discussed that it just shows how far left Kamala Harris is prepared to go, because Tim Walz is a far left candidate, and he has a record to prove just how big of a leftist he is. Now, Democrats argue that those attacks aren't going to stick, pointing to his resume as a teacher and a football coach, longtime National Guardsman, even though he wasn't exactly at the rank that he claimed he was, and that he represented your basic American House district for 12 years, Middle America. Per one ranking that he was the 7th most bipartisan member of the House during his final years in Congress, yesterday received the praise from the likes of Joe Manchin and Larry Hogan. Look, being endorsed by Larry Hogan is nothing to brag about. I'm sorry to disappoint you there. Republicans, though, are readying what they're calling their multi-pronged attack based largely on Governor Walz's record as the CEO of Minnesota. For example, Walz turned Minnesota into what the AP has called a trans refuge, encouraging minors from across the country to come to Minnesota. Look, if you can't get gender-affirming care in your state, come on, we welcome you. One provision gaining particular traction in conservative media requires schools to make menstrual sanitation products available in boys' bathrooms. This is the type of lunacy that this guy has led the charge on. Walz has given undocumented immigrants incentives to come to the U.S. by providing them with taxpayer-funded benefits in Minnesota, including access to Minnesota's free college program, access to subsidized health care, and, hey, come on and we'll give you a driver's license. No questions asked. Now, these are the things, when you have as one of the number one topics, one of the number one concerns, illegal immigration across the country, this is not going to fly very well with most Americans. Most Americans don't appreciate a governor who has made it easy and has even encouraged illegals to come to our country. Walz also, according to his record, slow-walked requests to call in the National Guard to stop the 2020 rioting following the death of George Floyd. This claim was made by the then mayor of Minneapolis, who just really hated the idea that Walz tried to blame him for being unprepared, when the mayor says that Walz was resisting calling in extra help. One of the other things that you'll hear as well is that Walz is accused of being the face of a socialist agenda, as demonstrated on last week's White Dudes for Harris call, where he said, "Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness." This guy is bad news. He is so far left. And the left, the progressives, they push Kamala Harris in this direction. But the crazy thing is, they don't even seem to realize it. The communications director for the Harris-Walz team, Michael Tyler, was very proud when he said Harris's choice has cemented the fundamental contrast in this race between the Harris-Walz ticket, which is fighting for working families, and the Trump-Vance Project 2025 agenda that would unleash harm on Americans across the country. They just don't understand what the issues that are top of mind for most Americans. They don't get it. They're either they don't understand it or they're denying it. I don't know. What do you think? Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself if you're looking for a new appliance to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. Former President Donald Trump leads Vice President Kamala Harris by 3 points in the latest statewide polling of North Carolina. Now, this consensus battleground state, sending electoral college votes to Republicans in 12 of the last 14 cycles dating back to a Lyndon Johnson win in 1964, has been a prime rally location since before Harris became the Democrats' nominee. Raleigh was the first site that President Joe Biden visited after his disaster of a debate on June 27th against Trump. A rally by Harris this week is getting reset due to Hurricane Debbie. The hurricane is slowly moving up the Atlantic seaboard, closing out the week. A state of emergency declared by Governor Roy Cooper with flooding expected led them to delay that rally. But North Carolina is a battleground state of the South, battleground state of the South. Trump has had a number of rallies in North Carolina, had one in Charlotte just a few weeks ago. And, of course, Laura Trump is from North Carolina, and so she pays special attention of what's going on in the Tar Heel state. So this is the first polling numbers that we've had since Joe Biden has dropped out and Kamala Harris was named as at the top of the ticket for the Democrats. So this is the first one that we've had with the two names, Trump and Harris, opposing one another. Trump outpolled Harris 44% to 41% among 714 likely voters that were in the sample. This was done July 31st and August the 3rd. Respondents also made choices for independent Robert F. Kennedy, 4%. Libertarian Chase Oliver got 1%, and the Green Party's favorite, Jill Stein, less than 1%, barely shows up. The poll was conducted by Redfield and Wilton Strategies, sponsored by The Telegraph. In other battleground states, Harris led Trump in Arizona by 1 percentage point, 44 to 43. They were tied in Nevada at 40% and tied in Wisconsin at 43%. In addition to North Carolina, Trump led Harris in Pennsylvania, 46 to 44, a 2-point lead there. Leads her in Georgia by 2 points, 46 to 44. And in Michigan by 1 point, 42 to 41. At the time of polling, Harris had yet named her vice presidential running mate, who we now know as Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Harris led Trump, though, in Minnesota by a fairly good margin, by 5 points, 46 to 41, and that was before their governor was named her running mate. So I think we can probably count Minnesota, scratch them off of the list, take them off of the wish list. Now, Trump has said that he thinks he can win Minnesota. I think the fact that Tim Walz is part of the Harris ticket, probably he should rethink that and not spend time and resources in Minnesota. Of course, back to North Carolina, they have 16 electoral college votes. They're considered one of the 7 key battleground states, representing 93 electoral votes. The others being Pennsylvania, who has 19 electoral college votes. Georgia has 16. Michigan has 15. Arizona 11. Wisconsin 10. And Nevada has 6. As it does consistently, the pollster asked respondents what would be the most important issue in determining how you vote. Guess what was first? The economy, stupid. And that's the question that these candidates have to be asking. And that's why I would love to see Donald Trump just stick to these top major issues. Stick to what gasoline is costing people. Stick to what it costs to go to the grocery store. If he does that and keeps some of the politics of personality out of it, I think he wins. I think he wins easily. The economy was chosen by 38% of the people as being their most important issue. It easily outdistanced abortion, which only got 15%, and surprisingly, immigration. I would have thought that immigration would have been higher, but it makes sense, doesn't it? Because people are hurting financially right now. Way down the list was healthcare. The environment was way down the list. And at 5% was people just didn't know. They didn't know what the top issue was. You also had more than 2% or less that were respectively still talking about the coronavirus pandemic. Other issues that came up: housing, government spending, foreign policy, defense, election integrity, voter fraud, welfare, policing, crime, homelessness, education, taxation. These are all issues that people identified. But again, the economy is very easily far outpaces any of the other issues. And this is why, again, we have to stick with this issue. We have to keep reminding people that they're a lot worse off now than they were before Joe Biden assumed office. Now, in another survey, and this is a bit surprising to me, this survey was done as part of the National Speech Index. It, too, was conducted in early July. It's a quarterly survey designed by FIRE, which is about the First Amendment. It's the nonprofit foundation for individual rights and expression. Free speech suppression on college campuses and social media censorship often spur debates over how the First Amendment should go to protect Americans' rights to express their opinions. We know that. And who should be entrusted with those decisions is a big question a lot of people have. Now, this is what surprised me. 53% of Americans, according to this survey, believe that the First Amendment goes too far in the rights it protects, according to this new poll. 53% believe that the First Amendment goes too far in the rights it protects. This surprises me. I don't quite get this. The 10-question survey consists of 5 permanent questions to track support for free speech and the First Amendment over time, and 5 rotating questions to capture public opinion about topical and newsworthy speech-related issues. Again, it's the latest installment in the National Speech Index. It's a quarterly survey designed by FIRE and the Polarization Research Lab at Dartmouth College to gauge public opinion on freedom of speech. FIRE's chief research advisor, Sean Stevens, said evidently 1 out of every 2 Americans wishes they had fewer civil liberties. Many of them reject the right to assemble, to have a free press, and to petition the government. This is a dictator's fantasy. Additionally, the report states that 69% of those surveyed believe the country is on the wrong track regarding free speech. Only 5% believe their rights are completely secure, and 12% not at all secure. Approximately 65% of respondents have some level of trust in the government to fairly decide on what speech is considered threatening or indecent. However, only 32% said they were not at all comfortable with the government limiting the free speech of pro-Hamas protesters. In Fire's press releasing the results of this, they said not only do many Americans want to take a machete to the First Amendment, but it's unclear whether they understand its bounds. It also states that a plurality of respondents said this spring's campus pro-Palestinian protests should have been allowed to continue on free speech grounds. The organization noted that while many protests were lawful, some included tent encampments, vandalism, and the occupation of buildings which are not justifiably protectable in the name of free speech. And they're right. I mean, you can't just take over a building, break the doors in, and go into a building in the name of freedom of speech. There has to be some limits there, because that has nothing to do with speech. Breaking into a building and taking control of that building as part of a violent protest on a college campus has nothing to do with freedom of speech. Stevens said Americans have little tolerance for certain forms of protected speech and a lot of tolerance for unprotected conduct, when it should be the other way around. This poll reveals that the state of free speech in America is dire. Pointing to previous surveys, Stevens told the Center Square that many Americans have little to no trust in the government to regulate free speech, but at the same time, other data suggests many are ready to censor views that they don't like. They want someone to do it, but they don't trust the government or social media companies to do it fairly, he said. Stevens highlighted one encouraging result. There seems to be rare bipartisan agreement between Democrats and Republicans, 61% and 52% respectively, that they are not comfortable with the government regulating the speech of pro-Hamas protesters. He said, I know what's being said probably offends a lot of people, but that's a strong free speech stance there. One other note he made is that half of Democrats and only 1/5 of Republicans think America is on the right track when it comes to free speech in general. What do you think? Is our freedom of speech under attack? Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of freedom of speech, on the text line, Jennifer, a follow-up from yesterday. Are you kidding me, she says? Any concern that the Dems would be able to reinvent Kamala? That's gone. Add Minnesota, leftist Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz, and Kamala together with the D.C. squad, and you've got a trifecta of extreme left-wing radical destruction like this country has never seen. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro got it right in Philly Tuesday night, didn't he? He said that every day he goes to work to GSD, and that's exactly what this tactical ticket will do. Nothing but get done. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate your comment. You always make good points. Faye, Joey, this duo running for president makes me very sick. These two are loonies, and they want to kill as many babies as they can. Their job is to replace us all. Americans best wake up and not be impressed by their lying rallies. Texter, this is a great one. Joey from 96 says, hello, hope you're well. We met at GSP, and I listen to you every day. I just had to send you this. Myself, my son, and 3 boys, twins, Josiah and Anakin, I think I'm saying that right, Anakin, and Lincoln, who's 7 years old. We were watching Trump when the attempt on his life happened. This will be etched in their memory forever. Gosh, that's for sure. And I've had so many parents tell me that they saw this and their kids saw it as well. And this is one of those things you'll remember the day when Donald Trump was almost assassinated. Joey goes on and said, this will be etched in their memory forever. We try to teach them right from wrong and explain that there are crazy people in the world. After we watched and continued to watch, these boys were as upset and mad as the adults. This is a photo of Lincoln doing his impression of Trump. We laughed so hard because he nailed it. It was a proud moment for his papa, I tell you. And he included a photo of his son, Lincoln, doing his Trump imitation. And all I can say is, Lincoln, You nailed it. You got it right, son. Got a future little Republican there. Appreciate your text message. Texter, Republicans need a nationwide television campaign with someone like Morgan Freeman to calmly and rationally explain the truths and the differences between the candidates. Texter, Joey, we need to stop calling them liberals because they're no longer liberal. They are leftists. They are communist. And you're right. I mean, she chose one of the biggest leftist governors serving in our country. And that's our job over the next couple of months, is to educate people and make sure people know just who Tim Walz is. Make sure people know that he enticed illegals to come into the states by offering free education, by making it known that they could easily get a driver's license in Minnesota, that they could get a free education in Minnesota. And we wonder why illegals still want to flood into our country. It's governors like him who proudly proclaim that, hey, if your state will not allow your teenager to get the right treatment because they're trans, send them to Minnesota. We'll offer them all the encouragement and all the treatments that they want to start their new trans life. And the list goes on. This guy is so far left that it's not even funny. And again, I've said this before, I repeat it. It kind of tells you what the Democrat Party has done to Kamala Harris. I mean, Kamala Harris has always been liberal. It's a known fact. She was the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate. But as this texter says, it's not just about liberalism now. It's about leftists trying to take control of our country. Texter says, hopefully Trump and the Republicans will expose the crimes of the Democrats and hold them accountable. Jamie Raskin and his father are communists. Texter, did you ever dream back in January that Trump would be running against such a weak ticket? Well, let's not underestimate them. They should be weak, but let's not get too confident here. We got a lot of work to do. Texter, just another Democrat accusing Republicans of what they're doing. And this is, I think this texter is referencing Tim Walz's stump speech, because he loves to get in front of a crowd. And we've learned this just in the 2 days that we've become to know who he is. But he's drinking the Kool-Aid. He's out there proudly trying to portray what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done these past 3.5 years as being good for the country. And we all know that it hasn't been. We all know that Bidenomics has been an utter failure. And he does too. He's just an opportunist. He likes the idea of he's become very fond of Air Force Two. So he wants Air Force Two to be assigned to him. Texter says, Did you pay attention to the Bud Light, sir? Oh, I know what you're talking about. I think I asked the question about the whole thing about Netflix and the $4 million contribution that I guess it was the CEO of Netflix made to the Harris campaign. And there's been a lot of talk about, well, maybe we need to be boycotting Netflix. And my comment was, boycotts are typically not effective. Now, did the Bud Light situation hurt Bud Light? Yes, it did. It hurt Budweiser. It did. One texter says boycotts work. Ask Bud Light and Target. Target saw it as well. Those were exceptions. I guess my point was, and look, if you want to cancel your subscription to Netflix, do it. I would encourage you to do so. What I don't want us to get caught up in, though, is to spend a lot of energy and a lot of our resources boycotting Netflix because they made a political contribution when we could be using those same resources to promote Donald Trump and JD Vance. That was my point. Look, again, you should cancel your subscription today if you haven't already. But do we want to spend a lot of time trying to encourage others to do likewise, to try to start this organic boycott? I don't think so. Let's spend that time supporting Donald Trump. Let's spend that time getting people registered to vote. Let's spend that time putting together a voter turnout list and how we're going to get people to go to the polls. That was my point. I do appreciate your text. Texter, what will you do to prepare for Cackle's presidency? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Re-education camps. Well, I'll tell you what we do. Let's not prepare for a Cackles presidency. Let's beat her. Let's work hard and beat her. That's what I would say. Hey, quick note, the Secret Service has decided after the almost catastrophe in Butler, Pennsylvania, that maybe it's a good idea to have counter sniper units at these political rallies. Secret Service snipers were positioned outside of a rally for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in Wisconsin yesterday. Imagine that. They suddenly decided that this is a good idea, and they got to get them out there to protect the Democrats. The first major outdoor presidential campaign event since a gunman opened fire on Donald Trump. Secret Service agents were positioned outside of the Harris-Walz rally in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where the vice president, her running mate, and other Democrat officials and musician Bon Iver appeared before 12,000 people at this outdoor event. Now, they're encouraging Donald Trump not to have outdoor events. Last week, acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe said that both the Republican and Democrat candidates will now have similar counter-sniper coverage moving forward. Yeah. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and if we're going to win in November, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.